adequately? And how do we make sure it's incorporated into the supply chain appropriately, Jenica?
Well, most of biodiversity degradation occur in specific supply chain, right? That's the sad truth to it. You know, food production, beverage production, transportation, construction, even fashion and retail. So, and the reason for this is because the entirety of their economic values rely solely on natural resources. So when the nature loses its capacity to be able to provide these services like pollination services, for example, and even air filtration or water regulation services, then the whole sector faces, disruption to it. So it is therefore important to be able to recognize its role in supply chain and to be able to identify how to manage and mitigate potential biodiversity loss, because it's going to go both ways. You will be affected, businesses will be affected by scarcity of resources, for example, and at the same time, your business can also have impacts, damaging impacts on biodiversity. So I suppose for companies, one thing that they can do is maybe consider expanding their materiality assessments to look at possible risk, biodiversity risk related and opportunities, and then identify what are possible drivers, identify how to mitigate these drivers, follow the mitigation hierarchy. I'm sure, Mr. Serene, you're familiar as a fellow high conservation value practitioner. Identify what to avoid, what to minimize, if it can't be avoided or minimized, how to restore it. And then the last possible solution is maybe look at offsetting if it's possible. Yeah.
So expand the materiality limit computation, look at the possible drivers, look at mitigation, and I'm hoping maybe Mr. Surin can take it from there. And then you mentioned the last point about offsetting. Before we go to Mr. Surin, Jenica, what do you mean by offsetting here?
Yeah, so offsetting is that when you find, if the actions or operations of your business has possible negative impacts on biodiversity, and then you cannot avoid or minimize this impact. So what you're going to do is you have to offset it. So that could mean on-site offsetting or off-site offsetting. It could be maybe doing reforestation activities or restoration activities, finding an area. It's kind of like for like. So whatever you destroy, you offset.
Right. And I like your point, because your point about degradation of biodiversity happen naturally because of transportation and whatever activities that we do. So it's unavoidable. The question is, how do we mitigate it? Mr. Surin, perhaps you're just taking on Ms. Jenica's point. How do we mitigate? How do we make sure it doesn't damage further from your experience?
Well, yeah, I mean, as Jenica has mentioned, there's a hierarchy, right? So mitigation is to be done if you can't avoid and you can find other alternatives, and you still have to go ahead with the project. Then you need to look into mitigation. Of course, it's quite difficult to be able to mitigate effectively all the potential impacts of a particular development project, and especially if, say, deforestation is concerned. I mean, yeah, maybe you can reduce the area that you're going to deforest. Maybe you can reduce the impact on biodiversity or species. Maybe you can reduce the impact on water pollution and all that, right? But I think we have to accept that there will still be some damage. So yeah, I mean, for some industries, probably you can mitigate better, but for some other industries, the mining industry, for example, mitigation is going to be a huge task and also very expensive. So I think that's why we want people to really work through that hierarchy and make sure that they have reduced as much as possible potential impacts and mitigate when they have to. Yeah.
Do you mind, just for our audience perspective, perhaps explanation of the hierarchy, if you don't mind?
Well, I can't remember offhand with the hierarchy, and maybe Janica has got better memory than me. But I think avoiding is the first, thing that you do, right? If you are going to have certain, take the example of the plantation sector, which I'm more familiar with, right? And one of the things that we do in the plantation sector is carrying out the high conservation value assessment. And this assessment will help plantations decide whether a particular area should be cleared or not. Because when we look at a greenfield area, for example, right, there could be standing forests there. And forests, actually, they're not all equal, right? Some may be of higher value, some may already be quite degraded. So you need to be able to differentiate. Now, sometimes you may even have rare, threatened, or endangered species in a particular forest, in which case then the usual advice is don't clear that forest, okay? These are some of the things that can be done in terms of avoiding that kind of, damage. But if you actually have to, develop a particular area, then can you reduce, that level of, the intensity of that development, right? And then you try to reduce as much as possible. Maybe look at your what kind of crop selection, the intensity of planting. Could you do intercropping? There are various options there, and then if you still need to go ahead with certain things, then you can look at mitigation, right? And then finally offsetting. I might have missed out one or two steps there, so maybe Janica can help out. So, yeah.
You explained that perfectly, Mr. Serene.
Very good. I think it's important for us also to take away from today's conversation, not just the theory of it, but how to do it. So your point about having high conservation valuation assessment is useful, so that then you can come up with a very detailed plan addressing the different evaluation assessments, right? And your point, some could be crop selection, some could be the intensity of plantation. Thank you. Perhaps then going back to Martrade, your greening supply chain, what is the critical success factors for you, as a deputy CEO? What must we do besides awareness? What do we need to do? And perhaps not just, I guess, SMEs in Malaysia, but across Philippines, Indonesia. What do we need to do to make sure we don't lose out in this cross-border trade landscape?
Yeah, I think the risk of not complying with ESG requirements is basically our market access is going to be restricted, because the advanced markets like Europeans and America, they have introduced a series of ESG and sustainability laws and acts, such as the Supply Chain Act, all that. So if you are not able to comply with that requirements, then there will be impact on the market access by our enterprises. And last year, Malaysia exported 1.426 trillion ringgit Malaysia worth of goods. And our trade numbers just out yesterday. For the first 5 months this year, we exported now already surpassed 1.1 trillion ringgit Malaysia, our trade. Yeah, but for export, more than 600 billion ringgit Malaysia worth of export for goods only. So if we don't really serious about it, and especially for our small and medium enterprises, there will be a lot of challenges ahead of them, because the contribution by micro, small, and medium enterprises to our total export is still small. In 2022, our MSMEs, they only contributed about 10.5% of the total 1.525 trillion. Last year, 1.43 trillion. 2022, 1.525 trillion ringgit worth of export. Only 10.5 from micro, small, and medium enterprises. Yeah, only 10%. Government has set a target next year to increase the share to 15%, and by 2030, government has increased to 30% of contribution. So if we want to ramp up this kind of export, we have to really look into the capability of our enterprises, especially the SMEs, to be able to not only embrace, not only aware of, but how to comply it. And this is where the role of our 49 overseas trade officers, first, of course, they need to furnish a lot of, information about all these requirements. But here, back home, we need to have a complete synergy among the ecosystem players. Not only Matrade, we are talking about international trade and export, but there are a lot of other government agencies, ministries, as well as private sectors. They are very keen or very interested to pursue ESG agenda, but whether are we really, in sync? So this is where under our 5-year national trade blueprint, we have that component on sustainability and ESG for us to work together with all the relevant stakeholders, for us to be able, first, to make sure our enterprises, again, is not only aware, but the action plan for us to go through the journey of compliance to ESG and sustainability requirements. So,
very good. So what you're saying, with our export is about 1.5 trillion, 10% is from SMEs, but we want to grow that to 30%. But critical for that is for SMEs to embrace ESG and the different sectors to work together. Are there any particular sector that we need to, in Malaysia or Indonesia or Philippines, from your point of view, that we need to, have a kick up the, to make them work harder? Which particular sector that we need help?
Well, we are talking about exporting. 85% of our export came from manufactured goods. The rest, commodities, agricultural, produce, all that. And I think Malaysia is chairing ASEAN next year. So there should be probably initiative for ASEAN countries to revisit the ESG framework that every country has and see whether there should be a uniformity of framework, ESG framework, for us to have, more common kind of platform. I'm talking from business perspective for our enterprises. So I will have to look into that among the ASEAN countries, because in terms of trade and export, we already have our ASEAN free trade area, trade agreement, AFTA, for many years, since 1993. But how about now shifting to the new mega trends about ESG? So we have to be serious about it and be able to help enterprises from all the ASEAN countries. And in fact, last year, our ministry, MITI, they had launched the IESG framework for manufacturing. So we are supporting the initiative, but we need to align with other ASEAN countries as well.
Very good. I think that's the purpose of the session today, right? I mean, and this Asia ESG positive impact is about us working together, maybe starting with the first 3 countries. Jenica, your point of view from Philippines, the suggestion by Encik Abu Bakar to work cross-border more, especially for intra-trade, the intra-ASEAN trade, your views?
Yes, there's actually a lot of opportunities when it comes to working cross-border. And there are also opportunities when it comes to compliance to ESG framework, again, coming from the biodiversity perspective. There are ways to maybe look at identifying biodiversity-specific indicators and then aligning those with traditional ESG metrics. And even aligning that with international or global conservation goals, like the very recently signed Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. That's one of them. And then aside from looking at just compliance, I would like to challenge our partners, the private sectors, to looking beyond compliance, going beyond compliance and working on additionality, because compliance is good, it's great, but I think beyond compliance is way sexier, you know? When it comes to like investors, especially investors that are very focused and investors that prioritizes a business that are businesses that have or are able to demonstrate nature positive commitments. So there are opportunities there, and there are definitely opportunities for collaboration and partnership between the three countries and other Asian nations.
Yeah, especially with the geopolitical tension heating up. I do know that we are given 45 minutes for this. I just want to check with the organizers, how many more minutes do we have? And perhaps, while the organizers can come back to us, perhaps I can open now for questions from the floor, just to make sure that you all are paying attention anyway, just joking. Any questions from the floor around the particular topic around cross-border trade and ESG? Yes, sir. Thank you. We can get a mic to this gentleman here, please. Is that possible? Yep. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. While we are doing this, Sime Darby Property, so perhaps someone can help to prepare for that particular answer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Trying to keep this meeting warm.
Thank you. Yeah.
The question I have is this, because when you look at the supply chain, and when we are talking about in a very global environment, rules may change over time, right? Where you know, and it's not, sometimes it's not for the wrong reason, right? Because you need to do this progressively, right? So my question is that given that individually we are small countries compared to the US and Europe, is there an ASEAN-based standardization when it comes to all these supply chain? Because, I mean, for me, is number one is, you know, we need to know what it's all about. I guess this is where education comes in. But number two is, what's the solution?
That's right.
Because for a business, when you do not know what's the solution, that's a scary part, I believe.
That's right. And next year, Malaysia is the chair of... So maybe I'll start with Martrade, and then maybe later on, Surin and Janika. The question is, with the supply chain and global rules changing, could we have an ASEAN standard, and where are we on this? Perhaps we start with you, Encik Abu Bakar. If you don't mind, I stand so that I can get some energy. So go ahead.
We are not a policy maker, so I'm not in the position. But I think in terms of standardization, anything that we do, we need to have a standard, right? Common standard, especially when we talk about collective ASEAN markets, more than nearly now 700 million population. So it's huge. But the thing is that I think while we have other standards that addressing trade and business related matters, but on ESG, I think that we can further solidify and intensify our efforts to have a common standard among the ASEAN countries.
So you would agree, and perhaps this Asia ESG Positive Impact Consortium can take this up to lobby the different countries. But anyway, Janika, your point, your view.
I just find it a bit funny because we're talking about standardizing ESG framework, but when it comes to biodiversity, there isn't even a standard methodology on how to measure the stocks. No, I mean, compared to climate and carbon, biodiversity is actually lagging behind. So when it comes to your greenhouse gas emissions, and you're trying to look at impacts of your emissions, you have scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. But we don't have that same for biodiversity. So you can measure your carbon footprint, but measuring biodiversity footprint is still in its very, very early stages. So there are also opportunities there, and maybe in the next future, we could be able to come up with a unified, standardized framework in order to measure that.
And this biodiversity lack of standard is not just ASEAN, it's across the whole globe, is it? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Surin, your point of view.
Okay, I think standards is a loaded word lah, because when you talk about standards, normally you will also mention about certification, because certification is a way to check whether your standards are being, implemented. And there's already a lot of, standards out there. So usually we talk about global standards, and each country may have its own national standards. So speaking from a producer's point of view, a manufacturer or plantation company's point of view, more standards means more headache, because it means then you have to have auditing for various standards. And yeah, I mean, these companies can end up spending a lot of time and resources just doing audits. So is that the way to go? So I would think that rather than trying to come up with too many standards, we should focus on the improvement bit, right? Improving practices. And also going by what Cik Abu Bakar mentioned just now, right? It's actually the SMEs that are struggling. I don't worry about the Sime Darbis or the IOIs or the KLKs, in this region. They've got the resources, they've got the people who can help them achieve those objectives. But the SMEs, the smallholders, the small players, they're going to really struggle if there are a lot of things that they have to comply with. And I think the big players need to support the small players, support through the supply chain, make sure that they can improve their practices in a stepwise manner, help them along the way, yeah.
Very good. So your point is not standards, but helping to improve performance and get the larger organizations to help the SMEs. Thank you so much. Just, if you don't mind, Sime Darby Property, a bit of promotion for you, your role as a biodiversity partner for this. Yeah, thank you. Let's welcome. Yeah, can we get a mic? Yes. Perhaps an introduction?
Yasmin Rashid.
Yasmin, yes. Thank you, Yasmin.
It's okay if I just stand here.
Yes, please.
I think for us, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Yasmin, for, let's give her a round of applause. Encourage her, yeah. Thank you so much.
I think over the last 10, 15 years, I think we're just blessed. We're just blessed with a lot of land as well. And majority of our land are predominantly unused oil palm plantation. So apart from focusing on converting them into townships, we're going to bring people to come live there as communities, and hopefully they can also have generations to live there as well. And I think we were guided by very strong leadership in the belief that turning agriculture soil into healthy soil symbolizes the beginning of making a healthy township. I think that was essentially the spirit and the philosophy. So we've been doing a lot of that. Of course, we remove palm oil trees, right? But for every palm oil tree we remove, we replace it with what we call ERT species. I think Surin will be familiar, which are endangered, rare, or threatened tree species. So we've been doing this tracking for the last 10 years. We hope we can digitize this whole experience to give us an idea and map out whether our efforts are bringing back urban biodiversity into townships. So maybe a bit of shameless advertising here. KL East Park is one example where 50% of the township is green because of the 53-acre park. And we use it as a playground to educate communities. So we do things like put a thermometer outside, which is normally 35, 32 degrees. And as you track inside, you put another thermometer inside to kind of, and it's normally 21, 19 degrees, to kind of just give that knowledge to people who hike that without this green lung here, and it connects to Bukit Tabor, the entire township will also be a bit less pleasant. So we hope we can replicate this across township. I know it can be slightly academic, but I think we need to get to that level as well. And we hope, like working with perhaps, and we're working with nonprofits as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we hope what we do can generate data that can help us improve our townships, but more importantly, the data should sit with other people as well so that they can look at how they can improve their townships.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Wow, very inspiring. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause. So to me, that's important, right? Today, I mean, it's Friday evening, staying back for another hour for this. Why? But things like this, right? Inspiring us to do something different for the nature. So thank you so much. I see you're prepared to end us. Time's up. Thank you so much. Please join me to thank our panelists for participating today. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chow, Encik Abu Bakar, Mr. Surin, Ms. Janika, as well as questions from the floor. Thank you, Yasmin. It's good to see you again. With that, ladies and gentlemen, nothing else, right? I think we'll just have to talk about this again more and more. It's quite endless, this topic. So once again, thank you so much, dear panelists. And we do hope that it was very insightful, informative for all of you attending here who are still here with us this afternoon. So I guess, Alvin, it is safe to say that ESG will surely expand significantly throughout our region, inshallah, and it is vital that the main key players of each country play a very significant role in sustaining ESG best practices in each country's representative industries, civil society, and more.
Absolutely right, Daphne. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program for today. We hope you had an enriching experience, and we would like to thank you for joining us for the first ever Asia ESG Positive Impact Consortium launch. Give yourselves all a big round of applause for being right here and supporting our event. Give yourselves a big round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you at future events and continuing this journey of positive impact together. Once again, my name is Alvin Ansans.
And I'm Daphne Aiking. We still have some refreshments outside. Do take a look at all the booths. Just now I had a little walkthrough and they've got some fantastic ideas and initiatives. See where we can assist them, especially our SMEs. On that note, once again, from Alvin, myself, thank you for joining us. Until we meet again, inshallah. See you guys.
Take care.
Save Planet
Bye-bye.
Earth.
Bye.
Andy Budiman, Chief Executive Officer, KG Media, as well as Yang Berusaha Tuan Rudyard Arbolado. I hope I made justice to your name. Was that fine? President and Chief Executive Officer for Philippine Daily Inquirer. We also have with us Ms. Lydia Wang from Star Media. And you all know the drill. Just raise your hands. If you have any questions, tell us where you're from. And again, we're going to be limiting any questions for our press conference with regards to our event for today. Okay, so over to anyone here. We've got the microphones at the side, or we can just swing by. Tak biasa lah, tak ada wireless.
Hi, Gerard here from The Star. So this question is open to all three participating CEOs. Maybe you can just elaborate on why this AEPIC was formed and what were the pressing matters that made the three of you realize that the three of you had to join forces for this initiative. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. On the question as to why this consortium is formed, I think back in early of this year, we have seen, from many business communications and engagement, that we suddenly realized that this ESG practices in the private sector, particularly the SME sector, is actually quite a tough thing for them to follow. So with that, we try to conceive the ideas of having more ESG engagement and so forth. And also happened that, Miss Lydia, met up with two of our partners during one of the conference. So straight away, she struck the idea of forming a consortium to help the business society as well as the general public, and at the same time take this as a social cause, to help the country and the regions. That is what I know so far. Maybe my partner will tell you a little bit more because they are more involved. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the AEPIC, the Asia ESG Positive Impact Consortium, is a continuation of what we as individual media has been doing for sustainability in each of our own country. But we realized that there is a very, very challenging situation in terms of the achievement of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that each country cannot solve the problem just by its own, especially just being a single media. So that's what we come up, well, again, Mrs. Lydia, to her credit, is the one who initiated the conversations that, countries should work together, and we as media players can be the one who spearheaded the movements that, Asia should be together to solve the problems that we're facing in terms of sustainability.
I'll just add to what Andy and Sangfat already mentioned. We're thankful that Lydia initiated this project. Prior to this, the Inquirer Group has been doing projects, ESG projects for quite some time, but we were not doing it deliberately. So we decided, why don't we take stock of what we're doing, put the brand to it. We use ESG Edge, and for greater impact and taking on what Lydia initiated, and have our efforts amplified across the region. So that way we'll have greater impact. And also there's also a recognition that as neighbors, we basically have the same issues, concerns, problems, and by putting our heads together, we'll be able to solve them.
Maybe Lydia
Lydia, maybe you want to just add on to that.
Yeah, as a project initiator, maybe you have something to say?
from a media perspective, our biggest power, so to speak, is really our ability to influence, inform, and move the communities. And in our respective countries, we saw the gaps, and we realized just communicating within our own countries are just not enough. Why we started with Indonesia and Philippines? Because we are very strong trade partners. And we all know ESG is a prerequisite of trade. We need to get our ESG right before we can talk about economic growth. And at the same time, we realize in the communities that we have, people struggle to even get basic information. People struggle to understand jargons. So this morning, collaboratively across the 3 media powerhouses, we had our first editorial meeting discussing about content that we can run deliberately across the different countries to educate. For example, topics on poverty, topics on environment, and engaging in research on how we can improve the livelihood of the rakyats in our respective country.
Any more questions? Otherwise, I've got plenty. Yep. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Terence from the Star. This question is for all. And what are some of the major goals of the consortium in the next 12 months? Thank you.
What was that again?
What are some of the major goals of the consortium in the next 12 months?
What are the major goals? Or perhaps like, what is the main or biggest gap that the consortium plans to bridge first?
I think it's quite obvious that our motive is to help all those practitioners involved or those society involved to have a better understanding of these ESG practices and principles. And also at the same time, we strongly believe in our own self that if this ESG principle can be practiced as a norm, as a standard, that will definitely help the economy and the society to be in a more healthy and equitable manner. And the main purpose, of course, we are using our media power, to help not only the society, but also at the same time the government to disseminate policies, and also at the same time let people have a chance, to have a platform to learn and have the resources, to engage, something like that, right?
Andy?
Yeah, I think as a media company, we reach the public, and then we reach other stakeholders as well, like businesses and government. So the goals are in each of those stakeholders. For the public, I think we as a media company, we have all measurements, how well our content reach the population, how many audience are reached by our sustainability content, for example. And to businesses is how well best practices are shared in our community. And for government, I think probably one of the most important stakeholders is how our journalism, our content have impact on their policy, on the change maker, on the decision makers' policy.
As media companies, on a daily basis, we carry out our task of informing the public. So with this consortium, we're taking it one step further. So we're focusing on a topic that's important to the Philippines and the rest of Asia, and educating them about the importance, how critical ESG principles are. The overall objective is to really use our collective reach to talk to a broader audience, and over time drive action that will create solutions that will allow us to achieve sustainable practices.
Ada lagi tak? Okay, I've got a few questions. Now, I think the MOU was signed or launched somewhere in March, if I'm not mistaken, right? The consortium plans to establish a like-minded fraternity that will serve as a voice for authority. So who are you aiming to helm and be drivers of this fraternity? I can't remember where I read it. I think it was one of the news.
Lydia will take the question. Yeah.
Sudah ada kah?
Yeah, so for the fraternity, what we are aiming is to pull together companies or entities that have walked the talk. That means people who have done it and judged as good. That's why when we started the award, it was not for the sake of a trophy, but it was for the sake of pulling out best practices, and not just any best practices. It's judged and gauged as best, right? So best in water management, best in energy, and so forth. And then we use this case to help expedite or shorten the learning curve for people in the same space. So when we talk about fraternity of like-minded ESG practitioners, that's what we mean. We bring together the best in class, and we help the community come up to speed. I think one of the biggest problems are not the PLCs, but really the non-PLCs, the SMEs, the people who don't have the resource or the know-how or the finances to actually embark on this ESG. How can we help them gain that knowledge without the expensive consultancies and so forth?
And of course, we're inviting other media powerhouses like yourselves to be on board. Of course, now we've got Malaysia, Philippines, as well as Indonesia. Have we invited other countries to just, hey, come? Or has anyone, my daughter says FOMO, fear of missing out, all right? Has anyone, since the MOU, and of course this probably has gone digital already, has anyone said hey, we're interested, we're from Vietnam, we're from Thailand? Anyone else coming in to join this initiative that you guys have already said yes to? Belum lagi ya? Or cannot be officially mentioned, is it?
Yes, indeed. Before we even did the first announcement, we actually talked to quite a few countries, and you realize the countries on board here all speak English very well. Okay, we have a few more in the pipeline, so we're very excited. Watch this space. Our vision is that we will be able to drive the ESG agenda with a larger community of media powerhouses across Asia, right? And this is the very, very first in Asia to launch a consortium of media powerhouses, not just any regular companies, but media powerhouses who have the ability to reach, influence, and move things.
Now, one of the challenges to ESG implementation is, of course, the regulatory barrier from various international regulations, as well as, of course, the reporting standards that businesses are expected to adhere to and to prioritize, as this will impact them. If you had a wish list, okay, it's just like, think Christmas is coming, all right? If you had a wish list, what country or who would you want to be desperately on board to make things move? Because we can talk and yap and do all these launches and stuff, but at the end of the day, there's bound to be one or two that's going to be key in making, let's do this. I don't care if it's not going to make me popular or if this has to be done. Who would that be besides, of course, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia? Who would that person or country or organization be? If you had a wish list, we could just have a wish list, law of attraction, asking for it. I put them in a bit of a...
Our wish list about to come true.
Oh, wow. Wow. See, law of attraction comes early. So it's, okay, so that's going to be another announcement, I assume?
It's in the works.
It's in the works, okay, see? Okay, I'm just scrolling out. Any more questions? Because I've got lots and lots of questions. Okay, back to you, Star.
One more question again for everyone on this one. So in every environmental projects, there's always criticisms that it's a form of greenwashing or so how does this consortium ensure that this is not just another greenwashing attempt, and how can we avoid criticisms of greenwashing in our efforts? Thank you.
Or is there any sense of metric measurements on how do you know that this collaboration is working? Like, how do we indicate that it's happening? It's not just what you were saying, you know? What would be the key indicators? Go ahead.
Yes, I think impact is the main metrics, because I think it can be understood that every company will have, you know, certain ESG initiative that they've been doing. For example, in Indonesia, every public company is by regulation, they have to have a sustainability report. That means they have to, you know, perform some sort of sustainability initiatives. But again, at the end of the day, it's what matters is impact, how the initiative impact the society. So that's why it's Asia ESG Positive Impact Consortium. So the measurable KPI for success of our consortium should be how does, you know, ESG initiatives across the Asia Pacific actually have positive impacts on the region. Again, if we're talking about goals, 2015, the United Nations, all countries of United Nations already adopted the SDGs goals, 17 goals, and we are only 15% on track so far to achieve what's supposed to be achieved by 2030. So only 6 years left, but only 15% of the goals are on track. In fact, there is a report that it will actually take another 32 years to achieve what was going to be achieved, what was targeted to be achieved back in 2015. So I think impact should be the main, one of the main KPIs of how we see our consortium contributing to the Asia Pacific ESG or SDG progress.
In addition to the metrics, probably there are also built-in safeguards in the way we will hold the AEPIC awards. First, we have a list of categories now. So the categories are very specific. Second, Lydia mentioned that what we aim for are to recognize efforts that are the best in class. So I think that's another form of safeguard. And then third probably is that there are basically two types of screenings. A screening done in each of the countries, member countries, and another one at the regional awards. So that would, again, I think, provide a safeguard against fears of greenwashing.
Perhaps I can also add, besides the award where we will have professionals on board with us to look at and filter the criteria and so forth, at the journalistic level, just this very morning, we were talking about how can we ensure that we don't inadvertently promote greenwashing, right? Because it's very dangerous. We may not, we have so many journalists running around doing these stories. So one of the way was there's a training that's go on to train journalists on how to spot greenwashing stories. How do we do the research and make sure that we have integrity in our stories? And the second conversation, and we were going to leverage on KG Media's expertise, is research. And we talk about cross-country research to find out the metrics of where other companies and also the consumers. So it's very interesting, right? Firstly, what is the acceptance of a consumer towards, or how important they think ESG is? And then at the corporate level, they may figure that they have done a lot, but maybe not. So henceforth the research.
Just looking at you, right? We're good. Meja yang sebelah sana, ada tak soalan? Do you have any questions from there? At the back? No? All right, we're good. Is there any final words that you would like to just punch in? I mean, we've got not just our own media here, but also media from outside, that you want to just encourage for our own journalists here in Malaysia to make sure that they, you know, create the awareness that we should be doing since yesterday and beyond. We'll start off probably with the lady, Lydia. I heard just now we were talking to the gentleman about how there's not enough diversity. Yeah. Yes. Maybe perhaps that's something that you and I can discuss too.
Actually, we also have the same problem within my group. They are all female. So likewise, it's not just one way. I think if you look at my team, they're all female. I mean, male, we are lacking in manpower. So I'm not a good one to preach, but certainly I think we would like to give equal opportunity to talents across board and also different ethnicity for sure.
We're just happy to have the formal launch today, and we're also excited to work out the next 12 months.
Well, I think with today's formal launching and with the crew of attendees that with us today, you can see the idea is quite well received in the marketplace. And I'm pleasantly surprised with so many technically representation attended this particular forum. And I think that is a silent endorsement and a testament for this good cause of program. And I hope that with today's formal launching, we will definitely intensify, the acceptance and also adopt the principle and practices of ESG to reach a wider community. And just like what Andy have just now said, the achievement so far only below 20%. There are a long way for us to catch up. So I always think that it is something that is not for somebody to wait, but rather for all of us to catch up. That is my view.
Better late than never, sir. Finally.
Yeah, I think with the launch today, we would like to open the doors, especially for other media houses across Asia to join AEPIC. We have a lot of work to do on sustainability, and we would like to enable AEPIC to achieve this journey for a greater impact together across Asia.
Now, all of you are powerhouses, but are you going to be selective about those who come and join your consortium? Or it can just be any media who's just interested in contributing to ESG?
Yeah, I think what Lydia said, we would like, prioritize the most influential,
Nice.
the most biggest national brands of media to join. But again, we will see how that works. Because I think representation of all countries across Asia is important. So yes, the wish list is there, but the wish list is actually not only the media, but the countries to all join together.
Yang Amat Berhormat stayed on for makan, right, just now? So you all had like a little, after like a little tea time with Yang Amat Berhormat just now. Did he add on anything that was not said already on stage that he would like to share with us? Did he say something? Because he comes up with something out of his hat. Suddenly he'll just come up with something. And maybe, we were not privy to that because we weren't in, in that little VIP area. But did he say anything that he will come and do more to help the consortium? Okay, their lips are sealed, I guess. Until it's official, that's how news works.
Well, I think a little bit unfortunate I was not at the same table with him. But I hear from the background, obviously he was quite happy in a very jovial mood after the launch. And from that, what we call background feel, obviously this launching have hit one of the target of our 17 goals, is create happiness.
That's true. Happiness is key, ladies and gentlemen. With that, thank you so much once again to all our panelists in front of us. Thank you. It's been a long day. And there's still lots more to do, so please get some rest. And to members of the media, thank you for staying all the way till the end. My name is Daphne Eiking on behalf of Alvin and myself. It's been a pleasure being your MC for today. And I guess with that, drive safe. I hope one day we can get our EV cars cheaper here in Malaysia. I'm just saying. With that, take care everyone, and I'll see you in our next event. Bye-bye.